Thank you everyone for joining this webinar. My name is Simone Yarber, PMP. You can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to add me. We're going to discuss tips for managing a diverse project team. This is going to be a very interactive webinar, so I'm going to need your participation. I'm going to need you to share your experiences, and this should be very exciting and interesting. So let's move forward. All right, here's our agenda. These are our key takeaways. We're going to start with what is diversity and why you should care. We're also going to discuss the importance of knowing your team. We're going to discuss facing barriers, challenges, and some conflict management techniques that you can utilize. And lastly, we'll cover collaborating effectively for success on your project team. So let's talk diversity. Can anyone tell me or describe what you think a diverse team looks like? What's your description of a diverse team? Are you currently working on a diverse team? And tell me a little bit about your team challenges as it relates to diversity. I'm interested to hear. You can leave your questions in the chat box or the question box, okay? Someone said, Melissa said, I think it means different skill sets and different levels, okay? Yes. Different backgrounds, age, exactly. There's more to it than just the experience. There's the background, age, expertise, nationality, yes. Thank you, Yan. Language, yes. All that's included in diversity. Language. All right. So let's continue. Also, I wanted to know, so does your team currently discuss diversity? Is it openly discussed? Are they allowed to talk about differences, and are they embraced? And if not, why not? And also, I wanted to know, do you think that it will be a benefit for your team to discuss diversity, and if so, why? So I just want to get some conversation going. Let's see. What are we saying? Let me know. Let's chat. So does your team openly discuss diversity and the differences? And do you think it will be a benefit? Okay. So someone's saying it's definitely a benefit, and working on a project that has a tight integration but is a different project, okay, and also could mean different behaviors and attitudes, backgrounds. Yes, definitely. Great. Different ways of approaching the topic or issue. Exactly. We want that. Okay, good. Thank you for all of your feedback, everyone. So let's go right into it. So it sounds like you think it's a benefit, and currently you understand what a diverse team looks like. So that's good. So let's go right into it. Okay. All right. So let's talk about when diversity exists. So it exists when groups of people, which we're going to call resources, when they bring together their own unique background and experiences to an organization or workplace. And this is solely for the benefit of the organization. We're utilizing their differences in perspectives, differences in behaviors, decision-making and judgments. All of that add into a diverse team. And as a manager, we're supposed to be managing it, diversity. And it starts from us. So we have to keep that in mind. It starts with us. Understand that managers can become very successful by building a culture that's based on tolerance, education, training, and conflict management strategies. So how can we do that? So I have a question for you, and this is just for you to reflect. Are you currently managing a diverse project team? Does your organization support diversity? Are you currently managing diversity for the benefit of your organization, or do you just want people, just diverse people, or do you see it as a benefit? Are my resources, ask yourself, are your resources being utilized to the best of their skill level potential? Are they just doing things to keep busy? Are they doing busy work, or are you assigning them to work that actually fits their skill potential? Let's ask ourselves that. Are we? And lastly, how can we make our work environment more comfortable for everyone? So let's just reflect on that. And if there are any comments, I'd love to hear some of your comments. I'm looking through to see any of your comments on that. Are your resources being utilized to the best of their skill potential, and so forth? And if not, we can discuss that. Okay, so let's keep moving forward. Not really seeing any comments right now. It could be because this is a reflection, so that's definitely something that you can reflect on. Okay, so let's continue. All right. So after you've reflected on your team and if diversity is considered important for your team and if you're using your resources for the best potential and so forth and you reflected on it, remember that's important. As a manager, we have to take a step back and look at ourselves. We need to make sure that we as managers are seeing it as important. Seeing a team of diverse people, our resources as important, are valuing their opinions and such. So here's what I say. It's a great idea to get to know your team. Why not? Let's spend that extra time and get to know our team. Why? Because the success and failure of an organization depends solely on its employees. They're the ones doing the work. So if they're doing the work, shouldn't we get to know them and make it a comfortable environment for everyone? Also, managers should take the time to listen to their employees' needs and make employees feel valued. It helps to find out what's important to them and maybe how can they contribute. You never know what someone on your team may be able to do and how they may contribute in a different way that may be such a great benefit for your organization. Also, to know your people, start with effective communication on a regular basis. And what I mean by that is speak with employees regularly. Go up to their desk, hey, ask open-ended questions. How's your day? How's your family? Get to know them. Make this a regular thing. In fact, managers can improve their effectiveness across the board by just listening better. So if we just take the time and listen, we'll be surprised what we'll find out about our team. You may end up finding out that they can really help you solve one of the biggest problems on your team. They have the solution. You never know. Or maybe they can help you with something personally. I also advise that managers observe their team members more and learn what they actually value. So spending that time and learning what are their actual values. And that can be done by just management, by walking around. We've heard of that. That's a useful tool. Management by walking around is when you go around, see what's going on with your team, talk with them, get to know them a bit more. Take time to stop, look, and listen. You'll be surprised what you'll learn about your team. Also, take time to also get to know what motivates team members. And you can do all of that by just talking to them, getting to know them. So my question for you, do you think that it's a great idea to get to know your team? Do you feel like it will be a bad thing to get to know them a little too much? Or what do you think would be a benefit of getting to know your team? Or has it been a benefit for you? Any examples? Let's see. I'm looking through at your answers. It builds trust. Yes, indeed. Exactly. When you spend that extra time, now you can, there's trust built on both sides. You get to know them. You can understand what motivates them. Yes, and it builds trust. You can relieve the stress of the day. Yes, exactly. You know how sometimes there's that tension. If you don't know someone, there's some uncertainty, so we want to reduce that uncertainty, right? Someone said, in my experience, it's very beneficial to establish personal relationships with all on the team. Yes, exactly. Not just singling people out, right? Not too much because you don't want complacency. Okay, so maybe not too much where you're just hanging out, right? So how you have to have a balance, yes, and you don't want to be seen as a micromanager. Yes, good points. Wow, look at this. As a manager, you can understand better their potentials, but there is a risk of getting too close in the case of hard decisions. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be seen as discriminating, right? Your employees care for their, yes, show that you care as a manager. It's a real benefit. It makes a more enjoyable workplace. Yes, it does. Thank you so much for all these comments. Look at this. Knowing your team allows you to use different techniques. Yes, you know what they value the most and how to motivate them. Exactly. Great comments. Thank you so much, everyone. So exactly, it is a great idea to get to know your team, and I'm glad we're all going to do that. I'm glad we're doing that. Let's keep moving. Okay, so as we know, sometimes we're faced with barriers, and when we get challenges and barriers, we need to manage them. We need to take the lead and handle it. We can't try to pretend like it doesn't exist, right? So managing across all nationalities and cultures, we have to understand that differences are going to cause challenges, regardless. It's going to happen, right? So we're going to talk about some different challenges. And yes, we will get into the tips. I saw someone's comment said, what are the tips, right? But we're going to get into that. We're going to just cover some things, and then tips will come up as we go, right? So language and cultural differences. This is a common challenge. Why? Because we're so different. We're spread out throughout the globe, and there's all different kinds of ways of information being perceived. Language is a common one because it's not only verbal, but it's non-verbal, like your body language, gestures may differ. I'm sure some of you are from all over the globe, so your gestures are far different from someone in the U.S. I'm from the U.S., and a head nod in the U.S. means agreeance, but I'm sure in a different country that can mean a totally different thing. It just depends. Or they may nod their head a different way, right? So let me know, have you experienced that where it may look, their body language may look a little different, and you have to kind of speculate, what exactly are they saying? Okay? So you can tell me about that as well in the chat box. Okay? So understand that language, and it differs based on the cultures. And also understanding that it's essential to communication, but it may cause misunderstandings. For example, you may call a technical support person, and then he or she answers, and you get frustrated with the issue, and you're so frustrated with the person, and then all of a sudden what happens? You have tension. You're frustrated because you can't understand what they're saying. They don't understand what you're saying. You're going back and forth. With that, that's when we need to say, for an example, let's find another communication medium. Let's find another way to just understand each other. Maybe we need to slow down. Maybe one person talk while the other person just listen, one at a time. We can't talk at the same time, right? Or else we won't hear each other. So sometimes slowing down, you'll be surprised at how much the communication barriers will be removed when you just slow down and try to listen. And also ask questions like, did you mean that? Or if I heard you correctly, you said so and so. And that way, there's common understanding on both sides. So then let's continue. There's direct versus indirect communication. And this is the degree to which communication is made explicit across many cultures, and it may vary. Some cultures assume more commonality of knowledge than others and communicate in more indirect ways. So it just depends on where you are. So I know in certain cultures, even in the U.S., they are very assertive. Myself, I'll tell you right off the bat, I'm very assertive, right? You can tell probably the way I talk. I'm actually from New York City. But someone from the South, they may be a little more indirect. They may not be as forward, right? So it's important to understand that that's just the way it is. Not to get so offended, but just understanding that it's different depending on where you go. People communicate differently depending on where you go. So my main tip for that one with direct versus indirect communication is just taking the time just to understand the different types of people that you're facing, that you're dealing with. And just understand that's just how they do things. Don't take it personally. Perception of time. Let's continue. So in some cultures, time is seen as a limited resource, whereas others, time may be more plentiful. I've heard in Italy, I haven't been yet, but I've heard they're pretty laid back. They're pretty laid back. And maybe time is not of the essence, and it's not as strenuous as we are here in the U.S., where we live by the clock. Everything's urgent. If it's on the calendar, it's supposed to happen then and there. Right? So perception of time is so different depending on where you go. There's some other barriers that we're going to talk about. Perception of hierarchy, which is dependent on what level they're on in different cultures, may vary in how you're supposed to show respect and so forth. So that's important to understand as well. Perception of individual versus collective. In some cultures, they may value individual uniqueness and independence, whereas some prioritize the collective good over their own preferences. So you have to understand that in some cultures, it's more of the collective, is more of a collective understanding versus an individual. So, for instance, if you're more focused on self and independence, maybe in another country they say we're more reliant on family first. So, can you tell me about? Someone give me any examples. Oh, look, I'm seeing some examples here. Okay, conversations in Brazil, Chile, Argentina are much more animated. You see? Who doesn't speak Portuguese or Spanish? Yeah, exactly. So it just depends on where you are around the world. It varies. So just being open is a great way to deal with those barriers and have understanding. Understand that there are also age-related prejudices. For example, we have our baby boomers, the folks born before 1980, and we have our millennials, born after 1980. There can be prejudices between them, but when those type of things exist, understand that they're limiting themselves. The baby boomer can learn from the millennial, and the millennial can learn from the baby boomer, right? So why not work together? Both should not have these false perceptions. Maybe try to figure out how can we combine the two. Perhaps the baby boomer can mentor the millennial, and the millennial can inform the baby boomer and teach them new things about technology or what's going on today. So we can actually work together. So that is another great tip. Work together instead of having this prejudice over where we are in life. Can we really control that? Think about it. Can we actually control where we are in life? As far as our age, we cannot control that we are a certain age. Don't you wish you could? But you can't. But hey, let's embrace it and try to work together. So now I turn it back to you. I want to hear some examples of, I'm sure we're from all over the globe. What are some examples of how, of using any of these that I'm talking about, direct versus indirect perception of time? How does that vary from your country, from the U.S., or from other countries? I just want to hear from you.
Simone, maybe, we can unmute a couple of attendees and we can discuss one of the, yeah? So just pick one of the best examples, and maybe you may want to unmute that person and discuss that with everyone.
Even better. I want to hear their voice. Perfect.
Yeah, great. So let's hear from them, and then you decide whom you have to unmute.
Has anyone raised their hand?
No.
Not yet? Okay.
Although I see Dave, Melanie, yeah, let me just quickly see where Dave is.
Okay. I see Dave said something in the chat box. He can speak up if he wants.
Yeah, I'm just quickly searching where he is so that I can unmute him. Here you go. So Dave, you unmuted now. Please go ahead. Dave, can you hear us?
Able to speak on the headset. They can only listen.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, he doesn't have a microphone, so no worries.
Okay. Anyone want to share any experiences? Someone says, okay, Alan says, I agree with someone. Can you mute your phone over there, Anuj? Okay, thank you. All right. Alan says, I agree with Simone. There's definitely cultural differences, different cultures seem to cut in between conversation while someone is talking. Yeah, exactly. That happens in the U.S. Even if we're in the U.S. and we're Americans, you have different types of Americans, different races, different cultures within America, right? We're a melting pot. So some cultures believe that it's okay to cut you off or cut into the conversation when someone's talking, whereas other cultures that is seen as rude. Well, here are my tips. Let's go right to it because I do want to hear from you. But if I can't, then we're going to have to keep moving forward. It's okay that you're unable to speak through the microphone. That's all right. I'm glad I can read what you're writing. So definitely keep writing, everyone, and I can always read it out loud and say your name. Okay? All right, so I'll continue with some more tips. So here's some tips. If you're a manager, you can consider these tips when you're leading your diverse project teams. First and foremost, take time to value employee differences. Remember, everyone on your team is different. No one person is alike. We need to remove that type of mindset of thinking that just because one person is the same race as me, they're going to be like me. No, that is not always the case. We all were brought up differently. So we all have something that makes us unique and adds value to the team. So take time to take time to get to know that person as a unique individual. Another tip, aim to create an inclusive environment. When I say inclusive environment, I mean including everyone in. Everyone should feel comfortable, included. There should be activities going on. There should be conversations going on. Don't leave anyone out. That's what I mean by inclusive environment. Also, you can avoid stereotyping and prejudging. Remember, I was talking about the baby boomers versus the millennials. That's a form of prejudice, and you don't want to do that. Prejudice is not only racial, but it could be age-related. So spend time avoiding those type of things and getting to know the person instead. And getting to know about their culture. Maybe take time, ask questions. Hey, what kind of traditions do you do? What are you doing for this particular occasion? Or where are you going over the weekend? Maybe you'll get to know about a person that way too. And also model expected behaviors. So not only do you want to encourage the team to have an inclusive environment, but you also want to model that type of behavior. So you want to be a role model. Show that you're interested in diversity. Show that you're interested in having that inclusive type of environment that's comfortable for everyone. Lastly, what you can also do as a manager is spend time coaching and mentoring. I can say so many of us don't do that enough. There are so many young people out here and older. I mean, it just depends on where you're trying to go in life at that particular time. There are so many people in general who just want that coaching and mentoring experience. They want advice. They want to grow. Everyone wants to grow and develop. So if you feel like you have something to add, which we all do, pull someone aside and help them, coach them, mentor them. Offer that advice so they can grow and develop too and get to where you are in life. So is anyone doing any of that right now? Do you have that? Are there mentoring programs and coaching programs in your workplace? Are you trying to implement that? Do you see that as a benefit? Do you think that that can help to reduce some of these challenges? Do you think that that will be helpful? So tell me what your workforce is currently doing. Maybe give us some examples of maybe some diversity issues and how the workforce is handling them. Coaching and mentorship. Okay, so Andrea says coaching and mentorship is beneficial to all, both parties. Exactly. You can learn from your mentor just as much as the mentor can learn from you, the mentee, right? So Abdul says, I currently create an inclusive environment, as you mentioned, and it helps me in getting results. Yeah, exactly. If you're doing that actively, you will get results. So that's one thing people need to understand, that it's not just about yourself and, oh, I need to do very well with my job and I need to hit my number, but create that environment and everyone will be comfortable in helping you get there, right? And you will get those results. Anything else? Let's see. For me, okay, so Andrea also says, for me, I don't really focus on professional hierarchy. I focus more on function. Okay, that's good. Let me see. Let me read more. For example, you may be able to respond to my concerns, and I will go to you directly. You are, and at the end of the day, just another employee like me. Oh, that's great. Okay. Someone also mentions communications trainings. Dave mentions that, communications training, such as emotional intelligence. It helps to see past experiences that comprise diversity, okay? And it's also helpful to mentor and have a mentee. Yes, exactly. Helps the team learn. That's what Dorsey is saying. And lean on each other. Yeah, exactly. So we could break down these silos and build up knowledge sharing. I love that. It's also, and Barry Rucker, he's saying that it is very important to understand the other person's perspective. Yes, because it's not all about you, right? No need to create fear and to be feared. No fear for failure or success. Exactly. We're all in this together. We should feel like we're in this together. We can all be productive together. Thank you, Barry. Yes. Okay.
Come on, Barry wants to ask you a question.
Hey, I'm sorry.
Hello.
Hey, Simona Ranoj. This is Venkatapat. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. Hi, Venkata.
Fantastic. It looks like I am doing on behalf of Barry, I think. The message that is sent. Anyways, thank you, Barry sent out the information. Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly what it's all about. Okay, have a friendly culture and making sure that others also understand your perspective. Make the communication easy. So again, that fear of everything is about fear. Okay, being threatened, and that's one of the reasons people are getting scared. So no need to have fear. Make it easy. Fear of failure and fear of success, make it easy for them. And it should be also make it easy for themselves to, in the other way around. That's very, very important. So that way actually doesn't matter whatever the culture differences, you will not see that they will feel you welcome. That is very important for any kind of a manager. That's what is ultimately we need. We need to gain the confidence in the person. That's what it is. Thank you.
Kata, exactly. Why do we need to develop fear? We don't need to do that. We need to have an environment where everyone feels comfortable. Thank you so much. That was great. Thank you, everyone, for all of your comments. This is a great discussion because we're living this, right? This is our life. This is our lives. Okay, so let's continue.
Simone, I have a question. What if the
Oh, you do?
is
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a question. What if the table is turned? Maybe if I understand that hierarchy doesn't matters, and in the real world, if suppose you're the person to whom you're reporting, yeah, if you see that he is not very well managing people from different cultures, so how do you kind of put across your points to this person? Because right now we are kind of seeing the other way around. So if there's a junior person in the hierarchy and he sees a senior not doing very well in the management of managing multiple cultures, people reporting into him, and because of which the entire atmosphere is ruining. At the same time, the project is not working fine. How do you see that one should address this particular issue? Simone, are you there?
Sorry, I was on mute. Okay, yes, I'm right here. All right.
So did you get my question?
So, I'm hearing you, but sometimes it goes in and out.
Okay, sorry.
So if you can type that for me a little bit to summarize what you said.
I will.
And this is a perfect example of communication barriers, technology. Okay. Thank you, Anuj. Are you typing? Okay.
Go ahead. I'll ask you. Please go ahead.
Okay. All right. So, yes, people, processes, and technology is always complex in the world. Any great leader is willing to learn too. Very true. Exactly. Assigning reach-out activities where workers are matched with others to have one-on-one communications about their life outside of work. Okay, and also open communication. Yes, very important. Will be helpful to some extent. Good, good. And someone's saying, next slide, please. Okay, I will move forward. I will. I definitely will. I wanted to hear from everyone, though. I want everyone to have their voice heard. Okay. All right. Okay, but let me know if I cannot hear you. Do leave the comment in the box so I can definitely answer your questions. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to keep moving forward. So we just covered facing barriers and challenges, and we talked about some tips on how we can lead our teams and what we can actually consider and do. So these are some more tips. Let's talk about tips on resolving conflict. So as we mentioned, conflict is inevitable. It's going to happen. So what you need to do is, first and foremost, identify the root problem. So if the problem is language, then stick to that. That is the root cause. And also clarify each party's position to avoid ambiguity. Next, you want to facilitate understanding of the other party. So if I heard you correctly, you said so and so, right? If you need to, depending on the situation, involve a neutral mediator. Someone that heard you correctly, heard both of you, and is right in the middle, and they're not really biased to either one of you. We also need to commit to a solution. So remember, we said first we start off with the problem, but we need to commit to a solution. It could be win-win, or lose-lose, or win-lose, or so forth. We need to have some kind of a solution. Get something out of this, right? And lastly, resolve that conflict quickly. Do not let this linger, because it only creates more uncomfortable experiences for everyone, and you don't want that. So as a manager, these are some tips that you can use to resolve some conflicts. So my question to you, are you currently dealing with difficult situations, and are you handling them quickly? Are you committing to the solution? Are you doing some of these steps? Do you find any of these particular steps helpful, or maybe not helpful? What are your thoughts? I want to hear from you. How do you resolve these conflicts? Because they come up. They do. So someone is saying, okay, let's see. Let's read what we're saying here. I want to hear from you. Give me some of your comments. Okay, definitely. It's definitely helpful. Thank you, Alan. Yes, it is, of course, because we need to take care of the issues at hand and resolve them. It may not be what we want to do, right? Someone else is, okay, Alan is also saying the best way to resolve this kind of conflict is to avoid corresponding via emails. Oh, yes, that's a good one. Thank you, Alan. A lot of issues can be resolved by picking up the phone, right? We don't want to go back and forth with an email and then using little expressions. We need to get on the phone and talk, and you'll feel better. Both of you will feel better when you actually talk it out, and you'll find out the issue wasn't as big as we thought, right? Andrea is saying writing things down is important so that people can digest and think. Yes. So on the flip side, it's also good to write it down. So maybe not go back and forth with the emails, but maybe write your thoughts down, right? Wording from emails can cause unnecessary, yes, it can be so unnecessary. A lot of times the person doesn't mean it or so forth. It's just very unnecessary. We don't want that. So Abdullah is saying, how would you identify the problem? I realize sometimes it is a problem for one employee but not the other. So yes, definitely take time to see what is the problem. Ask. Say, what is the issue? What is going on? Ask the questions up front so you can determine what is the root cause. And it may not be a problem for the other, right? So say if I'll just use Tom and Larry. So say Tom and Larry are arguing about something, and Tom sees it as a huge issue, but Larry doesn't think it's an issue, and he's understanding. He's like, Tom, why are you making this into a big deal? But see, that's what we need as managers, where we can come in, or if we are Tom and Larry, we need to try to take a look at and understanding, why does Tom feel the way he does? Show a little empathy. Why does he feel the way he does? And don't tell him that he's wrong for feeling that way. All of our feelings are valid, right? People interpret differently from emails. Yes, we want to stay away from those emails. Thank you, Alan. Bernard English is saying, implementing cross-training. Yes, exactly. This is a great one, as it will help in understanding, communicating proper solutions. Exactly. That is so true. Some people need that formal training to understand what is proper and what kind of communication is acceptable in the workplace. And do some of you have that available at your organizations, and are you using that? So yeah, this is good stuff. Very good. Okay, and Barry is saying, again, the way in which a manager communicates, the style may give the wrong impression to the other, so the managers need to be careful. Yes, the managers definitely need to be careful in how they say things and what they're doing, because, right, they're seen as a leader. Now, we all know that not all managers are leaders, right, but they're seen as leaders. So they would need to be careful in how they're communicating. Maybe they're a little too directive, maybe a little too loose. Barry also says, thinking that people are assets. Oh yeah, good point, Barry. We're not assets. We all contribute. We're all contributors. And we're all unique individuals. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. I'll keep the chat box open so I'll be able to see any more, but I'll keep moving forward. All right. All right. So these are some tips that you can build team harmony. So in the end of the day, we want a comfortable environment. We want to go to work and feel good about it. These are some do's and don'ts. Focus on some similarities and common goals. So what do you have in common with Tom and Larry? What do you have in common with so and so forth? What do you have in common with Sally or Sue? Try to understand. Maybe you have similar goals and such. You never know. Make friendships and help one another. That's another thing you want to do. Have an open mind, always. Always have an open mind. You never know what you can learn. And have that open communication on a regular basis. These are the don'ts. Don't allow your emotions. I wish I underlined that. Don't allow your emotions to affect how you behave. Maybe you had a bad day. Maybe you just got a ticket. So assess what you're feeling right now, and maybe take some quiet time for yourself before dealing with other people at that particular time, because you don't want to cause any misunderstandings. Don't be certain that everyone thinks like you. So because they look like you, don't think they think like you. Or because you just think that they think like you, just understand everyone's unique. Also, don't give up when there's a conflict. Sometimes we want to throw in the towel, and that's a term we use here where we just want to give up, throw in the towel, I don't want to deal with this, hands up, moving on. Sometimes, especially as a manager, you don't want to give up when there's a conflict. You want to make sure, get to the root cause, you solve it, and you move on quickly, because you have work to do, right? Okay? So here are some techniques that you can use today. 8 things that you can do today to build a more inclusive and harmonious workplace. And I just want to let you know, I do cite my sources at the end of this presentation. And most of my sources are coming from one particular publication. It's by the National Integration Working Group for Workplaces, and they posted a great toolkit for organizations to use, and you can also look this up. It's called Managing Workplace Diversity. So that's where I'm getting a lot of this from. So it's great information that I'm sharing with you. So these are some techniques that you can use today. 8 things you can do today to build a more inclusive and harmonious workplace. First, you can get to know someone at work that you don't know well. Take time. Maybe do some lunch with someone. Hey, let's grab lunch. Maybe I want to get to know you. When you're talking to them, ask questions. If you're unsure what the colleague is saying, again, say, when you say this, do you mean, because maybe they may not mean what you are thinking that they meant. So make sure that's understanding. Another technique you can use is try rephrasing your question. Not everyone is going to understand what you're asking. So remember that too. Just because you're asking a question does not mean they understand what your question is, right? I'm sure we had situations like that where you've asked a question and they don't even understand what your question is, right? But make sure you can rephrase it, or maybe use nonverbal cues. You can use hand signals. Oh, excuse me, I have a question here. Is everyone hearing me okay? Okay. Because it says my audio went out, but I just want to make sure you're still with me. Okay, you are. Okay, good. All right, Abdul is saying that he agrees with my first point. Focus on similarities and goals. Employees with the same vision produce great results. Yes. Very good. Saquon, I'm probably saying that wrong. I apologize. It says, do you think sometimes it's better to give up a small conflict for the big picture? Yes, exactly. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you have to use the conflict technique of avoidance. In certain situations, if you have an SLA and it's important, it's due right then and there, and your 2 team members are fighting, you may have to put that on the side burner and tell them, hey, we're going to table this. That's a term we use here in the U.S. We're going to table that. We're going to get to it later because right now is not the time. We need to focus on the work and maybe separate those 2 if they're arguing or such, or if there's some kind of conflict. But you always want to deal with it right then and there. All right, let's continue. So more techniques. So we talked about rephrasing your question so the other person can understand. Remember, at the end of the day, it's not just for you to understand what you're saying. You want the other person to understand what you're saying, right? So use nonverbal cues, hand signals, and so forth to make your communication clear. This is so important. Be patient when you're talking with colleagues, especially those that speak a different mother tongue. Take your time with them. If they're speaking fast, ask them to slow down, but you be patient and learn and understand what they're saying. Something you really want to avoid. Don't make jokes about other nationalities. It's not necessarily funny. The race and cultures of other nationalities, race and cultures, or age, because understand you may be upsetting some of your colleagues. So have a little sensitivity in some of the things that you say. It's not always funny to talk about someone else's culture and so forth, their age, and so just be careful with that one. Another tip and another technique is to ask other colleagues to provide feedback on your work. Hey, you can learn something about yourself from just asking, hey, what do you think of my work? So don't be afraid to ask that question, and not just from people in your team. Ask other colleagues, maybe people from other teams. Another technique is to keep an open mind. All throughout your day, have that open mind. When someone gives you their opinion, especially when they offer an opinion that differs from yours, you want to have that open mind and understanding what their opinions are, because it is just that, their opinion. So remember, people are entitled to that. And lastly, if you notice that a colleague is being disrespectful towards another, politely inform him and gently tell them that his or her behavior is not appropriate. Don't let that slide. If you see that happening, nip that in the bud right there. Use these techniques today. We have 5 minutes. I want to see what some people are saying. in the chat box, care must be taken on phrasing this. At my workplace, some people understand take it offline to mean discussion stops. Yes, exactly. That's a good one. To mean discussion stops and no further action takes place when the intention was to have another meeting with only the interested parties. Yes, so sometimes you need to put it on the back burner. We're going to take it offline, deal with it later. Good one. Thank you, Dave. All right, let me keep moving forward. Some more tips and strategies. So these are tips and strategies particularly on how to be a more inclusive manager. So as a manager, you need to respect differences, value that people are unique, keep an open mind, build self-awareness. This is something you have to do on your own. Understand yourself and where you come from first and foremost before you can understand someone else, right? Get to know your team members on an individual level. Take that time, acknowledge differences, their different communication styles and languages, and make decisions based on the team members' abilities and task specifications. So what I'm saying in that last bullet, in that last number, is to focus on the work and only the work. Make decisions on that and not the things that don't matter. Some more tips and strategies. These are tips and strategies on building a culture of inclusiveness within your team. So for the team, you want to focus on the common goals, remove us and them, remove us and then them kind of talk. So you don't know what I meant by that bullet was you don't know how someone else is perceiving the information. So it could be, don't assume that it's us, or don't assume that it's them. Don't use those kind of words. Sometimes just focus on stating your point as I instead. Communicate to your team members the importance of sustaining an inclusive culture. So let them know how important that is. It is the manager's responsibility to let them know that this is important to have this kind of environment. Emphasize behavioral expectations that are likely to foster an inclusive environment. Yes, up front, let them know these are the expectations and how you're supposed to behave. Maybe have trainings and let them know what's acceptable. Recruit inclusive values and behavior in mind. So what I mean is when you are recruiting people, make sure that that you're looking for people with integrity. Orientate new team members. So when you have a new team member coming into your team, make sure you are treating them as if they're brand new. Don't treat them as if they know everything. Get them familiar with the environment and help them along the way. Number 7 is seek out perspectives of team members of different perspectives. Yes, you definitely want to understand what other people's perspectives are. You don't want to just be biased and only understand your perspective. Address any biases and intolerable behavior promptly. And lastly, provide opportunities for employees to increase understanding and interaction within each other. So opportunities could be team building exercises and such. So here's a reflection exercise. So ask yourself these questions. How well does your team work together? In terms of level of communication and interaction, how effectively and frequently does your team members communicate with one another? This will tell you how well your team is working together. Do conflicts and misunderstandings often occur? In terms of level of collaboration, do you notice cliques within your team? That'll tell you right then and there if the team is working well together. Mutual care and support. Do team members treat one another with respect? Are you noticing people saying rude comments and such? So that's another thing to look at. And lastly, team morale. Are team members energized about coming to work? Do they look happy? Do they appear to enjoy working together? So these are some things to notice. You'll be able to understand if your team is working, you'll understand how well your team is working together. And in summary, the top things to keep in mind in managing diverse teams is to become an inclusive manager in your behaviors first and foremost and decisions. Build a culture of inclusiveness within your team. And also, lastly, both employees and managers must work together on this to make it happen. And working together can ensure a successful working relationship. I want to thank you, everyone, for being here. These are some of my references, and you can definitely take a look at that. And this is a diversity assessment that you can utilize as well. It's great resources. I'll take any questions. I thank you so much, everyone. I hope you learned something today.